Hello, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to AsphaAssure's webinar, Everything You Need to Know About AsphaAssure eQMS. Before starting, just a couple of things to take into consideration about the webinar. The webinar will last approximately 50 minutes. In case you have any questions, please submit them in the chat because there will be some time for Q&As at the end of the webinar. We will also send you the presentation per email. And now it's my pleasure to introduce you our speaker today, Adi Ikovic, Senior Principal for MedTech at AsphaAssure. Adi is a mechanical engineer, expert in medical devices in the US and EU, with over 30 years experience in managing clinical and regulatory affairs departments, both for well-established and startup companies. He's specialized in developing company-tailored regulatory and clinical strategies, lead auditor for QMS, ISMS, has extensive experience in performing internal and external audits and due diligence activities. Furthermore, he's an expert in developing strategies to meet technical and regulatory demands of different products and technologies. In today's webinar, Adi will explain and demonstrate the AsphaAssure tool and the opportunities it offers for defining, implementing, and maintaining your quality management system and regulatory processes. So, Adi will take it now from here. Adi, please, whenever you are ready.
Thank you very much, Lydia, and thank you for your kind presentation. And thank you, of course, the attendees and the participants in this webinar for this exceptional opportunity. It is a great pleasure for me to be here with you today and talk about the AsphaAssure, which is AsphaAssure's eQMS solution. So what we have in the agenda in the coming half an hour, 40 minutes, we will talk about the present situation that lead us to think about the initiative and the solution that we'll talk afterwards and about the AsphaAssure, the eQMS that was developed by AsphaAssure. So maybe starting with the present solution. So when it comes to software for regulatory affairs and quality assurance, I'm pretty much sure that you have met quite a few systems. And one of the problems that usually have with these systems is that usually the organization needs to adapt itself to the terminology, to the procedures, to the processes that the software dictates, and not the in the opposite side, not the software adapt itself to the needs of the organization. Moreover, as we see, we can see in the chart in the right side of the screen that the requirements, the regulatory requirements, and the trends that we see on regulatory affairs for medical device are increasing exponentially, actually. And we see that year after year, the requirements are more stringent, more scrutiny, and more requirements. And this is quite makes sense, actually, because regulatory affairs, usually we are following the development, the technological advancement and developments. And we can see that in the recent years, the changes, the technological changes and developments are evolving very rapidly, and the pace is very rapid. So we as regulators, we are supposed to catch up these changes and these evolution, technological evolution. So one of the problems that we have nowadays for medical device or medtech industries is the capability to catch up all the regulations, all the need, all the requirements, and just put it into one system to be able to control the requirements in a more effective and efficient way. So also, if we look to the aspects, the different aspects that actually motivate us, but also this is the situation that the medical device, the medtech industry is currently facing. So what we see that the number of regulations is increasing, as already said, but also not the number, but the requirements itself. We can see it in the recent medical device regulations and in vitro diagnostic regulation in the EU. And we can see now the upcoming changes that are about to happen within the FDA. We see in other territories and geographies in Asia, in South America, we see that the trend is that more and more requirements will be developed, and the manufacturer will have to be exposed to more and more requirements and needs. We also see that the number of approval pathways are increasing all the time. For example, in Europe, in the past, we have only the directives. In the future, we'll have only the regulations, but currently we have both. We have directives and regulations, directives for legacy devices, regulations, we have them for new devices, but practically we have more pathways for approval of medical devices. We can see it also in the US. There are additional processes, not only the regular processes like the 510K, the De Novo, the PMA, but we have also the breakthrough program for new technologies, and we have the humanitarian technologies, new technologies. So the number of approach and approval pathways are increasing constantly. Also, the way that regulators or regulatory agencies are expecting us manufacturers to manage regulatory affairs and quality assurance is on risk-based approach, meaning that everything should be go through the Googles of risk-based consideration, and everything should be prioritized according to the risk that the specific process posed to the user, and the user could be the patient, could be the medical staff, but could be also the environment and all the stakeholders that are connected to the specific process. The need to comply with quality standards also increase. For example, we can see mainly in Europe, in the EU, class 1 devices, also medical devices, but also IVDs, require also to establish a quality management system, and usually also certified according to the ISO 30485. What we can see also is the increase of collaboration between regulatory professionals and manufacturers and regulatory agencies. This is a process that we see more and more. We see also the involvement of regulatory authorities that is increasing. Any significant change that we need to do needs to be approved by the authorities. Every procedure that we want to introduce, or any new product that we want to introduce, of course, need to be submitted to the authorities. So the involvement of the authorities are increasing constantly. And actually, these are more or less the things that brought us to the understanding that we need to have a tool, an efficient tool, a flexible tool that will be able to cap all the current regulations and standards that manufacturers is supposed to comply with, and try to find a way how we can find the harmonized things that are general for the different regulations and standards, and think about a system that will allow us as manufacturers to control better, to have better control on the activities that derive from these legislations and standards. And actually, after with so many standards and legislations that sometimes they complete the other, but sometimes they are not completed by competing the other. So we have a little bit of mixture in our mind, and we need to find a solution, a good solution to be able to monitor all the requirements and to be able to control the needs. So, and for that, we need also to make sure that all wires and all dots are connected. And all dots, I mean all the things that we are supposed to comply and the requirements that we're supposed to meet in these regulations and standards need to be connected between each other, because there are a lot of things that are repeating along all these regulations and standards. There are things that are quite similar and we can formalize and harmonize, And these things we need to make sure that are well connected and established. So for that, as I said before, Asphalion and the team, the medtech team of Asphalion, started to think what can we do or what can be done for such situation, that we have so many regulations, so many requirements. We don't see in the future that it will decrease. From the opposite, it will increase. So what would be the way that we as medtech manufacturers can implement to ease the digestion of all these requirements and standards, and to have a system that will allow us to have a good control of all the requirements that derive from these regulations and standards. So what we defined a two-system solution. And the two-system solution is comprised of a software platform from one side and a professional application or professional regulatory and quality management application from the other side. Mixing these two components, we believe that this will provide the best solution for the medtech marketing nowadays. So if we are looking to the software platform, we are using a platform called Origami, which is an automated process management platform. This is a cloud-based system based on SaaS or the SaaS platform, software as service. It is very, very easy to manipulate. It's a no-code system. That means that you don't have to have any background in programming. You're not supposed to be a programmer when you build your own processes. It's just a matter of dragging the different fields or the different topics that you want, that you need to build your own process. And it is very intuitive. It can be easily customized. It can be done by yourself. You don't need to involve the programming company or the company that sells the licenses for this software. This is a platform that you can do everything by yourself. If you want to change a name of field, if you want to add a different or to change the process, or you want to add different conditions for this process, this is something that you can do by yourself without the need of the assistance of the programming company. And by the way, this is one of the problems that we face in many situations with current systems. Most of the systems that are currently in the market are quite closed, meaning that every change that you want to do, you need to involve the producer of the software company. Usually what happens is that you send the requirements, you get a proposal, you approve the proposal, they make the change, and after 1, 2, 3 months, you get the results, and then you realize that this is not exactly what you meant in the beginning. And it is a kind of a interactive process, which is very much costly and not always satisfy in a way that you can implement the changes exactly as you want. This platform practically allows you to do all the changes by yourself, to build your processes according to your terminology, the way that you are working, your SOPs, standard operating procedures, and nothing else. You are not forced to work according to a process that is dictated by software. This is an API-driven or online connectivity system. It means that it can be connected through API or through or online. And the most important thing for us, for the medtech industry, that it is fully validated in compliance with the IEC 62304 standard for life cycle software for medical devices, and FDA 21 CFR Part 11 for electronic records and electronic signatures. So, as I mentioned before, the idea is to try to put into the blender all the requirements or all the regulatory requirements and applicable standards, to put them together, to run the blender and come out with a specific or harmonized requirements that are actually typical and going across the board among these different requirements. So currently, the system covers the requirements of the FDA QSR quality system regulations, 21 CFR Part 820, which is the Code of Federal Regulation for quality assurance, the ISO 30485 2016, ISO 9001, sorry for the mistake, 2015, MDSAP, Medical Device Single Audit Program, the EU MDR 2017-745, the Medical Device Regulation, and the EU IVDR, In Vitro Diagnostic Regulation 2017-746. So as mentioned before, we took all these regulations, we took all these standards, put them together in a blender, we just mixed them up, and then we came out with 5 specific pillars that actually identify all these regulations and standards. And the pillars includes management activities related to the people, to human resources, processes, products, and customers. So now let's go one by one and see what each of one covers. So when we are talking about management, we are talking about management reviews and internal audit, and also the IT backup policy of the company. So these are the processes that are covered under management. Then we have under people, we have roles, competence matrix, staff, management, and training of new employees. Under processes, which is the biggest pillar, I would say, we have most of the processes that are typically needed for a medtech company. And this includes documents and records, D&D, design development, change control, CAPA, which is corrective action and preventive action, non-conforming product, monitoring and measuring equipment, inspection, including incoming, in-process, and final, purchasing and suppliers and subcontractors evaluation, contract review, language translations, and complaints handling. These are the processes under this specific pillar. And then under products, we have project management, risk management, and PMS, post-market surveillance. Customers is the last pillar, and it includes 2 processes: preservation of product and service provision. What is important also to mention is that the system is very intuitive, and the UX, the user interface and the user design is very friendly, user-friendly. You can build your own dashboard with different widgets that you can build by yourself and present a different type of information with notifications, with alerts, and different types of data for daily use and for you to be aware of what you should do in the coming future. So usually the system starts with an organization setup. The organization setup starts with defining what are the applicable legislation and standards that you are supposed to comply with. Here you can see that you need to define if you comply with the FDA QSR, with the ISO 30485, ISO 9001, MDR, IVDR, or MDSAP. Once you choose between yes and no, this will, of course, influence to the rest of the processes that you will see in continuation. So this is the first thing that you are supposed to do once you start to work with the system, is to define what are the applicable legislation and standards that you are supposed to comply with. Then we continue with organization structure. You build your own organigram. You need to define what are the applicable and exclusion of processes. As you know, both the ISO 30485 and the ISO 9001 requires manufacturers to identify which are the processes that are applicable or exclude, or not applicable and are not excluded from the processes that are included in the company. For example, a company that does not provide sterile product, so sterility, this is a topic that figures in the ISO 30485, which will not be applicable for this specific organization. Another example could be a provision of service processes. Probably your device does not require any service or any installation requirements. So this topic will be actually not applicable specifically for your organization, which could be applicable, of course, for other organizations. Then you can input, okay, you can enter into the system all the software platform validation. As I said, the platform validation complies with the IC 62304 software lifecycle for medical devices, and the 21 CFR Part 11 electronic records and electronic signatures. You can also have your own disclaimers if you wish, if you need. So there is a space where you can add disclaimers. The system also has capability to interface with artificial intelligence capabilities. Actually, you can build your own prompt and ask the system, like you build the prompt in ChatGPT, for example, that you are asking, for example, for a specific insight for a specific kappa or a specific engineering change order, ECO or if you want, for example, to ask ChatGPT for a potential risk for a specific product, this is something that can be done from the system, and it is embedded in the system. This is a relatively new feature because the AI in overall is relatively a new feature, but this is one of the potentials that the system has to be also to get also inputs from ChatGPT. So what I would like to do now is just to pick one of the processes that I was mentioned before, and the process that I would like to show you is the kappa process. The kappa process is the corrective action and preventive action. So what we see here is how the screen or how the information will be displayed in your screen, in your monitor. So actually what we see, first of all, because you build the processes according to your own needs, your own requirements, your specific process and specific SOP, a standard operating procedure, the information that you will see here is the information specifically needed for your process and nothing else. One of the problems that we see in many software packages is that you see a lot of data or a lot of fields that probably you don't need it, and then it a little bit, I would say, confuse and dirt the visuality of the system and the information that you are supposed to use. This is also cause quite a lot of difficulties when you are audited by regulatory authorities, because then you need to explain why this specific field was not filled up. And you need to justify the reason why part of the information is entered and part of the information is not. So because with the system, you are building your own process according to your specific needs, the only information that you will see here is the relevant information that you would need to run your processes. So for kappa, we have different topics that we need to comply with. So as I said, the system is a two-system solution. We have the platform and we have the application. So what we see here actually is the application. This is the knowledge. This is the information that you are supposed to complete in a kappa. And these derive from the requirements from the standards and the legislations that I was mentioned before. So we start with the initiation. We have a unique identification number that identifies the corrective action or preventive action. You need to define if it is a corrective action or preventive action, or corrective action refers to a situation that already occurred. A preventive action refers to a situation that did not occur yet, but you expect that it may occur. So, and once you define if it is a corrective action or a preventive action, of course, the rest of the questions that we'll see afterwards will depend on this selection. Then the date of issue, the report source, if it was internally or arrived from an external source, the report details, you can select different possibilities here. You can say that the reporter details are from, for example, DMD, it was me. And then you can also define the trigger for the corrective action. In this case, I choose an internal audit. And once you choose internal audit, of course, the next field that will appear is where the internal audit was conducted. In this case, it was conducted in the design and development department. Then we have also the CAPA priority. We have the capability to organize CAPAs according to priorities, so to know which are the ones that we need to take care of before, and which are those that can wait a little bit more until they are handled. So once we finish the initiation part, then we go to the description of the discrepancy. As we said before, corrective action refers to a situation, a non-conformity, a discrepancy that already occurred. So here we have a free text that we can just write the information that we want. And in the next section, we can also attach all the objective evidence that we have and we collected to support the what we described before in the previous section of description of discrepancy. Of course, we can here attach as much as objective evidence that we want. We don't have a limit. We can add many as we want. We have the evidence details, the date, and we can attach here the document. After we finish this part and we define what is the description of the discrepancy, we'll go to the next step, which are the explanations, what are the immediate actions that we do to eliminate the discrepancy. Here also, I can add multiple actions for describing the resources, the responsibilities, due dates, status. The status could be open, in process, closed, done, depends on what you define, and the references. And then also I have the root cause analysis. Sorry, I have the section of the root cause analysis that I'm supposed to investigate what is the root of the discrepancy that we find. In this case, we can choose different methods. We can choose the 5 whys method, the fault tree analysis, the FTA method, Pareto analysis. We can also use FMEA, failure mode effective analysis. We can use also SPC methodology, statistical process control. And once you define the method that you wish to use, you have here the details of the method, how to proceed. Then you explain by words the analysis, the probable root cause, and the reason that we have this field is because afterwards we can do statistics and analyze different root cause or different reasons for a root cause. And then there is a question, if we reach to the source of the problem, if yes, so it should be approved. If we don't tick this box, so it will be a new box that will have to justify why we didn't reach to the root cause and what are the remaining issues or the remaining problems that are still open. After the corrective action, we have the section of, after the root cause analysis, sorry, we have the section of the corrective actions. In this section, as we saw before, we can have here multiple actions for multiple persons. The only difference is the corrective action can also trigger an ECO, an engineering change order. And if this is the case, we will also generate an ECO number. Of course, ECO will be managed by a different process, but at least there will be a connection between the corrective action and the ECO. Then we have the responsibilities, the due dates, and the status, and we will have additional questions or considerations that we will ask to make sure that we cover all the consequences and impact of handling these corrective actions, which includes impact on submissions, licenses, certifications, the need to review the V&V protocols, verification and validations, to review the risk management, to review if there are any adversely affect to the actions to the final product. And of course, the way that we have these questions, these will make sure that we will not miss any of these considerations that, as I said before, they derive from different sources among these legislations and standards that I mentioned at the beginning, which includes the ISO 30485, ISO 9001, QSR from the FDA, MDR, IVDR, and MDSAP. Finally, we approve this step and we date it. Then we have the resolution, and in the resolution we have also a few considerations to answer. And finally, there is a question: is if effectiveness evaluation is needed. If it is not needed, it should be explained and justified. But if it is needed, then we will have a set of additional questions that we will have to answer, including, and these are the questions, has the problem been comprehensively identified, and so on. We have 4 questions that we need to consider, and these are the questions for us to know and to evaluate the effectiveness of the corrective action. And finally, this step should be also approved and dated, and at the end we have the final closure. In the final closure, again, we have multiple people that can sign and can approve. So we have the approver and the date, and this is actually the process of the CAPA. This is just an example of one processes, but you can extrapolate from this process to other processes. This is the way that it works. We have a chronological flow of information and flow of data. The information is extracted from the requirements of the legislation and the standard. That means that the process, in the way that is shown here, fully complies with the requirements, the regulatory requirements. Of course, all the information that are in these fields can be modified and can be changed according to your procedures, your SOPs, your terminology, your triggers, and the vocabulary that you use. What you see here, this is just an example of the possibilities that you have. And it is also important to say that the changes, if you need to do changes, the changes take almost no time, actually. It can take just a few minutes to adapt and accommodate the process according to your requirements and your needs. So these 2 system solutions bring us to the system that we are presenting here, called AsphaAssure. And I think that what characterizes AsphaAssure, again, is the maximum flexibility. As I said, nothing is a plain vanilla. You don't get a plain vanilla and then you need to change. And every change, you need to implement quite substantial efforts and also be in contact with the programmers. You can do it everything by yourself. You can build your own processes with your own alerts and your own notifications. So in a way that the system adapts itself to your needs and not the other way around. It is cost effective because, again, the involvement of the software company or the software provider is going to minimum. You can do, I would say, 95% of the activities or the changes you can do by yourself, unless you want to use or to build a very sophisticated formula that calculates something very sophisticated. And then maybe in this case, you need to contact the software provider so they can help you with defining and building the process. But in most of the cases, this is something that you can manage by yourself. For us, it was very important that the software will be fully validated and comply with all the current requirements. And these are the main topics that we took in consideration. AsphaAssure currently includes an entry package. We have already defined processes for internal audits, training, documents and records, D&D, design and development, corrective action and preventive action, monitoring and measuring equipment, suppliers and subcontractors. And the reason that we started with these specific procedures is because what we saw at the beginning in front of our vision, our eyes, was actually startup companies and SME companies, small and medium enterprises. For small, medium enterprises and startup companies that at the beginning, they don't need the full coverage and comply with all the processes that are dictated by the quality standards. These are the processes, the most important processes that they need in the first stages, in the first phases, to be able to comply with the basic requirements of the regulations. So this is our entry package, but as I said before, you can use it as is, you can change it very easily. And of course, in this case, we will be more than happy and more than delighted to work together with you on building the system, defining the needs, defining the process, using the process that we already prepare and maybe modifying or preparing or defining totally new processes together with us. We can provide, in this case, both the knowledge how to use the system, but moreover, also the professional side of the regulatory affairs and the quality assurance. So please don't hesitate, call us today. We'll be happy to show you in more details the system, the software. Even if you wish, we can build together one process to see how it works and how you familiarize yourself with the system. And of course, if you like it, again, we will more than happy to help you and implement all the processes and all the requirements as dictated by the current requirements. So I would like to thank you very much for the time that you devoted and participated in this webinar. And we are looking forward and we will be happy to be in touch with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Adi, for this great presentation. It seems there are no questions so far, but I just wrote here in the chat that if anyone has any question, you can still submit them at info@asphalion.com. So thanks so much for the webinar. Thank you to all attendees, and we hope you enjoy it. Have a nice afternoon, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.